Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 88 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles, looking mischievous over there.
I'm just looking like Dratnos.
Okay. So, accurate then. And Trell as well. Welcome.
Howdy, fellas.
Howdy. Today we have a lot of patch 9.1 to talk about. A lot of news coming out from the next patch, which we still don't know when exactly that will be. But we did just have raid testing yesterday of it, so pretty cool. And we have some news about not just 9.1 stuff, but MDI style information too to talk about a little bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about what's going on, not just months in the future, but this very week on our own live servers, which is Push Week. There's Spiteful Volcanic Fortified going on, which is Push Week, and everybody loves to do keys except for Melee. And
Dude, this week feels so much easier than Quaking Sanguine. I thought that on paper the Quaking Sanguine week was going to be a lot easier, but I feel like the Spiteful Volcanic week is just I don't know. Maybe it's just like that it's like less taxing, but I think that like on paper Sanguine should cause you less problems. But like in Spiteful should technically keep you in combat longer. But I don't know what it is, but this week fees infinitely easier than
have you considered that it might be because you are a ranged DPS player and Spiteful doesn't do anything to you? Have you tried being in melee? Have you tried sitting next to the mobs? It's so toxic, man.
I guess the melee that I play with aren't also dying to Spiteful.
They attack for 80% of your health or 90% of your health. Like, what's going on? Why do those things hit so hard? It's not fair.
At least they nerfed them down to not hit from super far away anymore, but still.
Yeah, they have. Yes. Well, as long as you're running away from them, they have to get like right next to you. But if you're standing still or walking towards them, they do the whole predictive movement thing where it can feel like you get hit from really far away. Yeah, I don't know, it's a dumb affix. I think that they could nerf that thing's damage down to like 20% of what it currently is, and it would still be an affix that you had to play around, and it would be a lot less just like randomly one-shotting people.
I agree. And I do think this week is overall easier to push on. It's just easier because only one person is really threatened by it in the groups, usually. Whereas Sanguine, it can really take like 2 or 3 people to work on the affix.
Yeah.
I think that while the Sanguine Quaking week should technically be faster, I think the volume of like successful runs that you can get across the line is a lot higher this week. Is probably why you're seeing more keys timed at like a higher level. Plus, I don't know, just more gear and stuff, I guess. But yeah, I think everybody's kind of gear capped.
Many people are, yes, including Team Ambition, right? That's the name of Nerf, Ellesmere, Azuna, JPC, and Onesie, who have timed the World First 27, which was a Plaguefall. That's big congratulations to them. They've been collecting a tremendous amount of IO, up above that 3.5k threshold now, which is completely absurd. And yeah, I mean, the sick part about Plaguefall as well is it was not even close on the timer. They were under by 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
That looks about right.
Yeah,
that is
yes.
A very silly key, and there's a reason that they're nerfing the plague boars next season. If you're really able to play around the plague boars in like any meaningful way, you shave. Basically, you're bombing fucking the boss. You're bombing like Dr. Ickis. You're bombing Globgrog. You're literally bombing the whole damn dungeon. And,
the nerf is 9.1 that they're going to make it so that it's a 6-second instead of a 10-second dot. It'll still be really good. And it'll still have the similar effect where each key level is not that different from the one below in terms of how much damage you have to do to time it. But you will have to kill the like last little bit of health of these mobs. But often they're dying within the first couple seconds of the dot. They don't need the whole 10 seconds often.
Well, part of it too is that I'm pretty sure they may double dip with like. I think they're probably double dipping if I had to suspect.
With key level?
It feels, with key level or with fortified or something, because it feels like the mobs at a higher level get fucking murdered.
I bet it scales with fortified, yeah.
I bet it does too.
Because fortified increases their damage more than their health, right? But so
it's just one of those situations where the higher key you go, the easier it gets somehow due to scaling.
Yeah, I remember there was double dipping there was percent health mechanic that scaled up with key level in Freehold, right? The painful motivation.
Yeah, painful motivation.
And so that was just always like insta on a high key.
It used to be when that was uncapped at the beginning of the expansion, painful motivation. If they were bolstered, they would just insta kill everything once one of them got bolstered.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Plague borers do a very silly amount of damage, and if you play that dungeon like pretty aggressively with the bombs, you're able to shave. I mean, I'm not surprised that they were 3.5 minutes under. Like that feels like one of those dungeons that even all the way up to 30 or whatever the theoretical cap is, you're still going to be 3.5 minutes under if you have a clean run.
Yeah, this expansion, it feels like there's a couple different classes of dungeons. There's like the Plaguefall, the Necrotic Wake that's just like do the mechanics right and you can save them a bunch of time. And then there's the like Sanguine Depths and the Theater of Pains that are the King's Rests. And then there's just there's some that are just like kind of medium slogs, like the other side. And then there's the, you know, just good fast key like Halls and Mists.
I actually think that Sanguine Depths is getting a pretty considerable amount easier than DOS and Theater of Pain. I think the biggest issue with Sanguine Depths is that it was so hard for so long that like people don't know how to do that dungeon well, and so like the dungeon is a lot harder because the timer should be fairly lean. Like and the timer is fairly lenient.
It is, yeah.
But people don't go into that dungeon enough, I feel like, to be able to really.
I mean, there's just so much stuff that like brutally one-shots you in that dungeon as well, still from the trash.
Yeah. And every boss is pretty difficult to heal and do correctly.
But playing the lanterns optimally, you're able to shave.
Yeah, we'll talk
stupid amounts of time.
We'll talk more about some optimal use of the lanterns that have been discovered. First, though, let's talk a little bit about some MDI stuff, which is an upcoming one-off tournament. So it's not actually MDI main event or anything, which allows it to be streamed on Twitch as well, and allows the players to stream their perspective, which is pretty cool. So this is the Great Push. It is a weekend-long tournament where the goal is going to be to push the highest keys you can. So you'll compete in all 8 of the dungeons after getting onto the tournament from the Proving Grounds, and then you basically just try and push each dungeon up to the highest level key. Each dungeon has its own set of affixes and a base keystone level that hasn't been announced yet that everybody will start with, and then you'll just have like 5 hours a day for 3 days, I think, to push them up to the highest level you can bring them.
Yeah. How does the Proving Ground work exactly?
The Proving Grounds, well, here's the game battles page, which we can link as well.
I'll link in chat, yeah.
Yeah. So you get to play on the Tournament Realm after you sign up for it, and it's over 2 days. And it looks like there will be 2 keystones, and you try and do them at the fastest and the highest key level, and the top 6 teams advance. So it's basically just like a 2-dungeon version of the Great Push over 2 days. And then,
seems good.
Yeah.
What level do you guys think, estimating that they're going to start on with the actual event, the 5 hours?
No idea.
I feel like they could start on 22, 23, because that would give like, you could run each dungeon once or twice maybe and get up to 25s, maybe some 26s.
Yeah.
But I could also do like 24. That'd be really tough. But
I think maybe they're leaving it open-ended so they'll see like where the top. I think it comes down to like where the lower end of the top 6 teams are. Because the upper end of the top 6 are like, all right, there are groups doing 26s and 27s. There are not. I would say that there are not 6 teams in the world that can do 26s and 27s right now. Although maybe that's just made up. But I feel like there's probably like,
I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting question of like, you know, how do the Chinese teams do in this event? How do the like teams that are MDI focused or that weren't live key pushing focused this season do in this event? And there's been a lot of heated debate about this topic on Twitter.
Does Divine unretire from live key pushing?
These are the mysteries.
That'd be
right?
great to see. Yeah.
That would be crazy to see.
I miss Divine streaming so much.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely an open question about, like, for instance, just the question of like who is the favorite to win this tournament is one that people have different opinions about, and I think it's good. I think it's great that, I mean, anytime you can have an event where people not only agree about like who will win, but people don't agree about who's the underdog and who's the favorite, I think that leads to a very exciting viewing experience. So it should be a good time.
Didn't JPC like make a bet?
Yeah, JPC made a gifted sub bet of some kind, which also I'd love to see that. Anytime there's like there's skin in the game for people, that's even more interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I'm down. I'm ready to watch. I'm super excited for the whole thing.
Yeah, there's
me too.
Like there's the one argument that's like the MDI focused teams have a big advantage because it's on Tournament Realm, limited time, and maybe you could swap between a bunch of different characters like you do on Tournament Realm for different keystones and stuff like that. Then there's the other argument that's like, hey, it's very similar to what live key pushing is like, right? You probably can use similar routes and push to a similar level of key as you do on live with 5 hours a day for 3 days. So maybe it's the live key pushing teams that have the bigger advantage going in. I don't know. It's a mystery.
I think that for me, it's like probably synergy is like the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that both
thing that will play, and I don't think comp is like actually that important with something like this. I think that because I feel like very few of the keys are capped on damage. Like, I mean, you even see it with the Plaguefall 27. Like, they're 3.5 minutes under.
Well,
few of the keys are.
Plaguefall's
obviously an anomaly.
Yeah.
But few of the keys are capped on damage, so I think that the synergy is probably the most important part going into this. Not being like the most flexible with your comp, although having a good comp is important.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see to what extent like Ambition are able to adapt to the limited time structure of the tournament, and to what extent Echo is able to adapt to the the highest key element of it.
Great question in chat. Will they allow cardboard assassins on the TR?
I don't believe so.
The answer is no, but like that
is actually going to make it significantly harder to do something.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think they'll have to relearn some polls because of that, even the live teams. But also to clear up some questions earlier, JPC's bet was to gift Max 500 subs if his team loses the tournament.
Yeah. Well, no, it was if he got outperformed on Rogue, I think.
Oh yeah. If someone beats him on Rogue,
what a very objective way.
I don't even know. I don't know if there was a definition of outperformed either. So I will have to see exactly how that bet gets evaluated.
Is anybody else going to play Rogue?
I mean, I think it's likely that teams will play it for high keys. Yeah.
I mean, maybe some of the Chinese teams.
I think the spec is a good choice. Like, I think that Echo will likely play it for dungeons where they think it's better, and they'll try it.
Okay. I mean, did the Echo team, they fucking play everything?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they're like they are never locked into specs based on what their players can play. They're just literally always playing the 5 best specs they think they have for any dungeon.
I'm interested to see how they do. Like,
yeah,
especially since they have not been pushing on live. Now and Genji have been pushing on live, so they actually have like
only a little bit though. Like you can't push to the level of world first keys or anything if you are devoting weekends to MDI, and it's not just weekends to MDI. It's like every other week and then every other weekend on top of that to MDI at least, or realistically just every day for the last like 4 months.
I suspect that they'll be pretty good as long as they put in enough practice, because they'll have
there's a month between
weeks?
the global finals and this that will be really operative for them. So we'll see largely how seriously they're taking it based on how much they're pushing then. But yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
As far as melee goes in this tournament, I think we're gonna see a lot of Rogue, Windwalker, probably like a balance of the two, and then maybe some Havoc Demon Hunter. I think we could see one or two, but
I hope we see nutty Chinese teams. I hope we see the best Chinese teams actually try super hard. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Although they may be banned, but I don't really know what their deal is.
You think they got caught up in the RMT?
I mean, I would say that there is not a low possibility of this happening.
I don't know. I thought that was like more mid-level, mid-top guilds, not the very top guilds that were doing it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on the region.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I don't know either. I don't know what they're.
It's hard to get information on that region of the world sometimes.
Yeah, it's often just filtered down through secondhand sources, and then sometimes the first-hand source was actually just making it up that you heard from or whatever.
That's true.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the 9.1 raid testing real quick, which I did. You two didn't, but it was pretty sweet, actually. The Terragru is this incredible boss that it gives you anima powers. You get 4 anima powers before you fight the Terragru when you clear the trash. And there are some pretty sweet ones, including some that you need for the fight. There's like a stun immunity one that you need to do a stun mechanic during the fight. And then there's like a 90% AoE damage reduction that lets you ignore the big AoE damage basically on that fight. And then there's just a bunch of cool, useful abilities. The boss like enrages itself, and you can get a mechanic that lets you steal the enrage effect from the boss in your anima powers. And then there's just a bunch of other useful, good ones. Including one where you just do more health, healing, and damage and stuff, but when you die, you stun everybody within 10 yards for 10 seconds. That is a banger anima power. Yeah, there's one that like you knock back people you run near, so you can just like bowling ball through your own raid. It's cool. It's a really cool fight. It's the first boss of the raid, so it's not going to be tuned to be hard, but I love it. I actually love it.
I worried that like the powers could be gimmicky in some form or fashion, but since it's like the first boss of the raid,
it's like, a curated pool of powers as well. It's not like it's not like you can get like the full moon power or whatever.
I know, but like even then, there's still some powers that like were actually like pretty sizable damage gains versus some that were like, and this doesn't let me get stunned. And you're like, okay, well that's cool.
Well, yeah, you need some people to take that so you can do the mechanic with the stun on the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you don't want to be the person taking that. It is interesting.
Imperative did without anima powers?
Someone killed it without anima powers?
You can, yeah, because the last 10% of the fight you just have to do without anima powers. The boss takes away your anima powers for the last 10%.
Oh, okay.
And
right. Oh yeah, he like enrages by
then he enrages, does 500% damage, and just chases down your tanks. Pretty slowly, but I died on that. One auto, and I was out of there.
Instant dies.
And then they res Snap, and then Snap instantly died.
Yeah, dude, Snap yelled very loud when that happened. He was playing Brew as well, so he took one auto and went to like 7,000% stagger. It's just like the panic moment, you know?
Oh god, I'm dead.
Nothing feels worse than getting one shot on Brewmaster by a physical hit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there goes all my mitigation.
Yep. And then there was also the Guardian of the first ones, which was actually more of a kind of a patchwork sludge fist almost fight in terms of how the damage breaks down, but there were a little bit more mechanics to deal with. You have to. It's similar. There are like 3 pillars. You drag the boss to the pillars, and it like stops it from wiping you each time. And then once you're out of pillars, you got to kill the boss before it kills you. It's pretty cool.
I think that the burn bosses like Terragu and Guardians are like having them in moderation is actually pretty solid.
Terragu's a first boss, so it's not going to be like a tight check. There's no way.
Guardians is like
Guardians is the 7th boss, in the dungeon journal. We don't know exactly what the pathing through the dungeon might be, so maybe you can do it earlier or later. But yeah, it's sweet.
I agree though. Every raid could have like a nice single target patchwork boss like Sludge Fist or Guardian.
Yeah.
Would be really cool to have. Test your might against your raiders.
The raid itself is gorgeous as well. After you kill Terragu, you can port ahead to the next trash section, and it is very reminiscent of like ICC. You've got this bit where you're like walking on a bridge towards the middle tower, and there's tower all around you, and it looks so good.
The entrance is in the Beast Wardens, right?
I think so.
I think it's in like the top of the Beast Wardens.
In that little city bit that you can't go into?
Yeah, I think so. That was the locked area that was there this patch already. That makes sense.
All right, let's move on to tip of the week, and then we will talk more about 9.1 stuff. My tip of the week is that if you are doing a Bastion calling and you want to collect as much percent to fill up your Bastion calling bar as fast as possible, there's a set of rares, of 4 rares that spawn at the southern tip of the map called the Beast of Bastion. So it's just that southernmost flight path. You just go across the little bridge into that little training area, and you just talk to this person, and you can spawn these 4 different beasts, and each one will give you 20% count towards that calling. You just kill the rare, spawn the next one, kill the rare. It's awesome. You still have to go find 20% somewhere else, but very good way to get your call to Bastion quest done. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for the World Quest one or the do World Quest with your trainees one, but it's very good for the one that says fill the bar.
We were talking about, the reason I was trying to not like die laughing is because we were talking about tip of the week at like 3 a.m. the other day. He goes, I have one for Beast Sebastian this week. And I'm like, you gotta stop.
Dude, it's so good. It's so nice if you're trying to do some callings. Collect some Valor, collect some Renown on your alts or whatever.
Get a bell.
Yeah, collect a bell. The bell, by the way, Moonkins, if you want a bell on North America, just turn on war mode and go back in time. Late. Yeah, go back in time.
Oh, it's already gone.
And there was a bell. Yeah.
It was up for like 12 hours between the hours of like 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Central, and it was like, I woke up. It was like 6 o'clock. I was like looking at my phone, and like multiple messages. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's like,
Tell us, get your bell quick.
Yeah, it's like, why am I getting pinged about the bell? World Quest at 5 a.m.
Yeah, we've been having some good times at 5. We did some keys at 5 a.m. a couple days ago.
I was tanking.
Yeah, TTV Titles did some tanking.
Nice.
Yo, we timed to 21. I'm a fucking god.
We did.
We timed multiple 21s.
We timed several, I think. Did we time a 20? No, we timed just 21s, I think, with you tanking.
Yeah. It was a top and a Spires.
Spires, yeah. Dude, I snuck my Fury Warrior into that Spires as well.
That Spires was so trapped. Hey, Trell, I don't know how to tank the fucking spear mob in Spires at all.
Like lining him up, you mean, at the end?
I mean, being aware of where my melee needed to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, Tettles had us in this, like, death triangle with the charged spears, just like...
I was very
dangerous, though.
I was very safe. The rest of my party, no, I don't know what their deal was.
All right,
it was at 5 a.m. It was very late.
Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Well, mine's not about Beast of Bastion, unfortunately, but we had a Wowhead article this week about the spider toy that you can spawn 5 spiders with the toy. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, the sacrispectral spiders.
Right, you can use those in Sanguine Depths to add stacks to the lantern per the article, but you can also use lots of other things. Pretty much any neutral or hostile object, NPC, affix thing, you name it. Spitefulls, explosives, anything dying within that lantern AoE will add stacks to the group.
Giant death web egg, 2 stacks right there. Very powerful. Yep. That toy.
So you just like open up your toy box and just dump them on the lantern and get free stacks.
Yep.
Wait, was there a Wowhead article about that this week?
There was a Reddit post, I think. I don't know if there was.
Okay, maybe it was a Reddit post. Yeah. I thought it was Wowhead.
So I'm doing a tip of the week article, and I was like, wait a second, was there already an article about this?
It's really really quite good.
Blingtrons also work.
It changes your pathing in that dungeon as well, because you don't need to do like stack extensions. There's no value in extending a stack anymore, because you could just, anytime you get to a lantern, you get 10 stacks.
The one after the first boss, and there's like multiple ones with critters that are next to them as well. You can like immediately refresh your stacks on, and like finding the critters is also pretty nice.
Yeah.
So the tank can taunt the 1 HP spider that's sitting off in a corner, and if no one touches it, and then you kill it in the lantern, that refreshes it.
Yeah. All right, Tettles, what is your clip of the week?
You were in this key.
Oh my goodness! All right, let's take a look. It is Necrotic Wake.
Would believe it's a great clip.
Oh yeah, I was here for this. Yeah, it's disowned.
I didn't. I was screaming when it happened.
Yeah. All right, we'll play it back one time with sound. Here it comes.
I would believe that. Yeah, it shit sucks. Oh, I'm cracked!
You are so cracked.
I'm so fucking young. I'm literally screaming the whole time. I'm keeping the charged, and I'm so fucking young. It's insane. We gotta kill this. I was just at the end of it. We gotta kill this boss, man. I'm gonna die in a second. I'm gonna die in 30 seconds. Kill him. God.
Yeah, so you human form wild charged as you got targeted by Dark Exile, and it didn't go off.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But the downside of doing that is then you die after 60 seconds. But it's all about the clout play. Whenever you pull it off, it's very cool. We didn't have any battle reses left, but it didn't matter. The play was made.
It was good. It was impressive for sure.
I was like, did you?
I just didn't know how you did it. Yeah.
No.
All right.
That's cool. I didn't know human wild charge worked. Rogue grappling hook works as well.
Ooh.
I don't know if any others work like that.
I'll try transcending it. Wonder if that works. That could make a lot of distance. Although it doesn't give you momentum or whatever, like one of the
it's like that's an instant move. I don't know if that would work.
All right. Rest of our show this week, we'll be talking about several different 9-1 things that are coming. First among them is Radar.io score is being added in game, basically. So there's going to be M+ score from Blizzard themselves. There's also going to be this in Torghast, by the way, Torghast score too. So Blizzard's really going wild, adding scores to everything. What do you guys think about the addition of an IO score to the in-game client?
I think it's great. I think this has been a long time coming, and they're finally laying the groundwork for adding seasonal rewards to Mythic Plus and certain tiers, just like PvP has currently.
Yeah, so
I think
like they could now have like reach 2,500 M plus score, get this cool amount, reach 3K, get this title or these transmogs or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe something like the Mists of Pandaria challenge modes dungeon ports.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain rating, something like that.
Yeah, or like top rating in the
like
region.
The CM transmogs too, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess looking at like the negatives, do you worry that this is going to adversely affect the lower end of groups?
My belief is that Raider IO score is prevalent enough that it'll be better for, like, right now I think that Raider IO score already gates people to the same, like, people are using it to gatekeep just as much as they would if it was in game, except you don't know about IO score if you're new, right? And you like, it's a further barrier that it's an out of game system that you have to go and learn about. So I think it reduces the barriers by bringing it in here. There is an argument to be made that like if it didn't exist at all, maybe people would be more able to get into groups, but I don't think they would. I think that people gate kept over item level before item level existed. They kept the gate kept over gear score, link achievement, link AOTC, link cutting edge, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always going to be some metric that people use to be elitist or whatever in their groups, and there's no. It is better the more it's actually just like how high keys have you done. I think that's much better way to gatekeep than like item level.
Yeah, sure. Okay, and so how do you think this is going to affect boosting?
I think that the like boosting for score will probably be as healthy as it is now, maybe even more. I mean, I think that more than the like if it's just used to get into groups, I think that it'll be about the same as it is right now. I think people already use IO for group forming as much as they will with M plus scores. Maybe it'll be a little bit more valuable. I think the big reason that M plus score boosting would go up in value is if there are rewards tied to it. If there's like some mounts or transmogs or whatever you can get, or high item level gear that is locked behind score next patch, then that will be a big pusher of sales.
I think it's super interesting to me. I think it's super interesting to me that like the difference between like the weekly 15 crowd who are like pugging through LFG and then like players who are like competing, I guess, against one another to like push IO. Like the difference between how the IO is used has always been kind of fascinating to me, because like if you're pushing keys, you're not using IO to like pick your group. You're just getting IO as you push the highest level of content. Versus
I got into some groups this week at 300 IO.
That is how that works sometimes.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a system that has. I mean, there is that the group finder is not great. It's not a great experience right now trying to get into pug keys. But I think that people take out the anger on the score system when there's a lot of fundamental issues there. I think that there's a lot of issues as well around the fact that there's like one tank for every 30 DPS players that are fundamentally going to leave a lot of DPS players standing when the music ends.
That is also very true, because there's like basically as a tank you can be underqualified and join the key, I think, a lot of the times, but as the DPS you're like more often than not overqualified applying the keys, and you're like, I just want to get invited to this random 15. And I will like apply to like a random 15 because I'm just doing bullshit on stream, and it's like, all right, 2600 Moonkin versus random qualified 1400 mage. Okay, I guess I just take the guy who's higher IO.
Yeah, it's tough this season as well, because with tanks, even as a tank, it's hard to get into keys now if you're low geared, because people know that like a 210 tank or a 200 tank is going to get clapped compared to the 226 ones or whatever, and they're not strong enough to live easily. But it is still true that after like 5 minutes of looking for a tank, people will just take anybody with that little symbol when they apply.
Do you think that Blizzard's going to like try to fix the affix balance and the push weak shit?
I don't think they will, but I wish they would.
That's good. That's fair.
Me too. That's fair.
So for those who don't know, like this is something we've talked about a lot in the past, but I would love to see a way that score was used to remove the push weak dynamic. people talk about the push week dynamic like it's a good thing, but I don't know, man. How many other games is it like, oh, I wanted to log into League of Legends this week, but it's down for this week. It'll be back up
It's
next
down for
week.
maintenance.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, your MMR gains are you
Yeah.
only get 5 points per win, 5 points per loss.
Or it's just like, yeah, I'm a diamond player, but this week I'm queuing in platinum or whatever, because that's the highest you can go. Diamond's
so
closed this week. That's
Oh darn! I scheduled my vacation for the wrong week this year. I can't play the game I want to play.
Path of Exile servers. Those were down for 12 hours yesterday or whatever, or
Ooh, that
bad
was
for
a
12
rough
hours.
launch.
And WoW M Plus servers are just down for a week every other week, and people, and we're supposed to pretend like it's good.
Not exactly, but okay.
Pretty
I
much.
mean, does have a point. Let's say Mythic Plus was like a heavily known thing, and it came out with like a new expansion, and then that was the case on the new expansion. People would be outraged. They couldn't play it for like the second week it was out.
Here are all the top keys. How many pages do you think I have to click on before I see the tyrannical icon?
Ooh, I'm gonna guess 6.
There are no good tyrannical like affix sets is the problem.
There are some okay ones, but yeah, it's true that the other affixes around it
There's no
exacerbate the
bursting
problem. But
yeah, the last expansion there was bursting volcanic tyrannical,
so,
which was
so
actually a
maybe
good
that's
push
an
week
argument
too.
that like tyrannical isn't as bad as it, but it's not an argument against the fact that half the weeks are closed.
We saw it in Seed 1.
Keep scrolling, keep going.
I'm sure we'll find
keep
one eventually. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be
Oh
here
my
at some
God.
point. We're 200 runs deep. We're seeing 2 chested 24s here before we're seeing a tyrannical key.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, I'm not.
Such great ballads.
What the fuck?
Okay, here it is.
Really?
The top tyrannical key. But wow, it's also done by like a team of heroes. It's Dorky's team with Azuna in it as well that timed the highest ever 24, which was also Plaguefall. A Plaguefall.
Of course, it's Plaguefall.
Yeah,
On
7 days
tyrannical
ago.
explosive raging.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that affix that's really not that bad.
And Plaguefall is the best dungeon as well for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could do a 27. The next week.
Yep, this is one of the same players that did a 27 this week, did 24 last week.
That's all. Okay, that's also a amount of trying. Like that, like if you look at the, I mean, they could probably do a 25, probably a 26 on a really. Maybe not
if they were
26.
pushing
They definitely do a
on
25.
Tyrannical Week, yeah, but and that's the thing is there's no incentive to, because right now the reason you do high keys is for IO. And this is also, it's not just a thing that's true at the 24 to 27 level. Like if you're pushing IO and your highest key is a 20 or 22 or whatever, or 18, you're also going to only be interested in playing on weeks where you feel like you can push. And it's possible that's a slightly different set of weeks, but it doesn't change the fact that just, out of every 12 weeks, there's 4 that you want to play. And
Tyrannical this affix set feels, this expansion feels really bad because you have top and DOS.
There's this counter argument that people make as well. It's like, oh, I don't want every week to be playing as hard as I currently do on push weeks, but you wouldn't have, like, if every week was a week that was playable, there would not be so much pressure to do all the keys you could that week and like sleep the 3 days before and after the week.
Well, there's always a best week.
Yeah, there would always be a best week, but you could use the score to entirely remove that if you wanted. Like if score was just
technically yes.
If the score was just normalized against everybody else's runs that week, then there's no, like, it doesn't matter how high the key level is relative to that week and the next week, right?
If it's
you always have
percentage
something to
based on
challenge
the
yourself
week.
that way.
Yeah.
Based on PvP.
So we have the technology in Warcraft logs, right? Where the best run is a 100, and then the next best runs are 99s if they're close, and the runs that are worse than that are 95s.
And it's that
all the
week
way
in
down.
isolation. But the problem still is that, like, okay, so say you have 100s across the board, what's your incentive to push, I guess? But like clout. But
you keep the 100s as well. Yeah, you don't want somebody else to yoink them.
But if it was a fixed set if it was a fixed set independent, which is the only way it could really work, right? It's not.
So you're saying, like, if you had an 100 from all 100s from one week, why would you play the next week?
Exactly.
Get 100s that week. I think that people still would play that. Also, I think it'd be a small
people
problem.
who are getting 100s are like,
by definition, there could only be like one team that does that, right? At most. And so I would
love to see that.
Yeah.
I think that would make it really interesting for different comps, especially to become more prevalent instead of just one comp being the best for the one push week. Because different affixes kind of favor different classes. Like some classes gain damage off of having spitefuls and explosives in the pool. Some classes handle necrotic better than other tanks. Some healers can handle bursting a little bit better. You know, stuff like that kind of makes a difference.
Some players are better at managing explosives, I think, is like part of it too. Like in like there would be shit like that where it's like, yeah, I'm nuts at explosives or whatever.
I've been making this video series about 9.1 stuff, and I made this point in the score video for this as well. But either Blizzard could do this with their new score, or Raider.io, now that there's an in-game version, can shift to having competition score or whatever that is normalized like this. And either one of those worlds would be one I'd like to live in.
What do you think happens to Raider.io?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Obviously, it's sort of simple. Does anybody use gear score now that item levels in game? Not really, right? So I think Raider.io is definitely going to have to find good ways to continue to be useful. I think that they have a lot of good ideas for that, though. I think the site already has a lot of useful coverage and features for other stuff, but I mean, the fact that the core functionality the core functionality is definitely going to in-game.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that they're working with Blizzard, and Blizzard reached out to them and they're like, all right, you got a system that works, obviously. Can we use that now for ourselves?
Yeah.
And they're willing to help and work with them.
It's always good to see the game get better, for sure. I think if I was making the calls about what to prioritize radar, it would be I would try and implement the normalized score system, but that would probably be selfish. I don't know how much that would actually lead to increased traffic. I think that would just be good experience for the top end. And I would try and build up the guild recruitment angle and try and yoink that spot from Warcraft logs or from WoW Progress, because WoW Progress is a website from 1980 and should not be what we use for guild recruitment anymore.
What? We all still use fucking WoW Prog? I'll never understand.
Well, there's a huge amount of inertia, right? Like you for any kind of recruitment platform, it's all about just where the people are more than like what the actual site does. But
that's like LinkedIn.
Yeah. Could you imagine applying to guilds on LinkedIn?
Oh, dude, that would make my day if all the gamers I know dressed up in a suit and made a profile picture for LinkedIn.io to meet other players to push keys with.
I can imagine Tettles just submitting like a moonkin with a suit photoshopped onto it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I sent you my application. Please respond.
All right.
Travis is coming up on a 2-year work anniversary with Titanforge podcast.
Okay, we have
this is fucking dead after that.
We have new information as well about Shard of Domination items, which are gems. These are raid-specific gems that it looks like may only slot into specific raid items, such as this 9.1 raid cloak that has a cogwheel socket on it. And Shard of Domination gems are gems that drop and level up. And also, they level up when you kill bosses, it looks like,
this
in
is
the
so
raid.
Cool. Speaking of Path of Exile, this is straight out of Path of Exile, where there's like specific skill gems that give you new effects. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they have all these different effects. There's these a bunch of different like DPS ones, tank ones, healer ones. It's unclear how many total you can have equipped. How many specific? Well, it's known that you can only have like one support gem, one offense and one defense, but it's unknown like will you be able to get 3 cogwheel sockets on your gear and slot one of each category, or will it be like you have to pick one total? These are the things that have yet to be answered. But you can see like, so Unbound Pestilence, for instance, at rank 1, it's just your helpful abilities send a swarm to protect target ally, taking 50% of up to X damage they take within 10 seconds. And that can proc once per 30 seconds. And then once you level it up to 5, instead it's more damage. It chains up to 3 nearby allies. It has a 25% chance to cast twice. It casts automatically every 60 seconds as well. And when your ally is fully healed, it attacks a nearby enemy instead. So leveling it up will be cool and make these things into kind of legendary effects. I think this is really, really sweet. I
think so too.
I love things like this.
I think that I never played with it being that system because it was like this in MoP, right?
Yeah, Shaw Touch gems.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really played with it. I never really played with it like that before, but I don't. As long as it's like not super impactful, I think I'm okay with it. I'm really willing to see like where they go with it, especially since it is such a weird change. I think with just how the gems work, because it looks like you have to stack them up, and
are they going to work outside of raid? Like, is that a thing? Are you going to have to swap your gems frequently? I think that
My bet is they will work outside of raid. Otherwise, yeah, that would be really weird.
Are they?
I think so.
Okay.
They just go in this.
I don't know.
You have to get them. You have to get them from raid. You have to get the sockets from raid, as well. And I think they'll just work outside of raid. But I guess, yeah. I mean, if they didn't, then I would be down on the system. Then if you're having to swap gear or whatever, not that often.
I would assume they don't work outside of raid because I thought this was going to be the system to where the raid naturally nerfs itself over time.
I think it will do that. Yeah.
Some way of doing that, but I could be wrong. For sure.
Like the last system we had that did that also worked outside of raid, right? Corruption resistance, stacking up over time.
True.
That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's an open question. We don't know exactly how it would work, but I do think that the idea of like a leveling up gem is cool.
I mean, I don't think it's like that impactful. Where I'm super worried about like the balance of the game or like health of like players or anything like that. I don't think it's like the most important thing ever. And I think that's like one of those things that Blizzard can do, and I'm lukewarm on it. I don't think I'm positive nor negative. I think it's like okay.
We also know flying is coming in 9.1, except for in the Maw, where all mounts will be unlockable, but the only ground mounts you can't fly. So that's
maybe flying in the Maw in 9.2.
Maybe I doubt it though. I think the Maw is never going to be a place you can fly like Argus.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
We have some upgrades on how Soul Ash is going to work as well. It looks like there's not going to be Soul Ash required to upgrade your legendaries to ranks 5 and 6. There is a new data mined currency called Mega Soul Ash, which I believe is a placeholder name, but we don't know how that'll work yet. It looks like, though, upgrading legendaries right now on PTR doesn't involve that, but it might later on, or maybe Mega Soul Ash is just something that drops that has a bunch of Soul Ash or something, or no idea how that'll work. But right now it looks like upgrading to 5 and 6 is going to just require your crafters to get items that drop from Maw dailies and make the higher base types from that. And then there's some other reagent you use to actually get them to 5 and 6, which, again, it's unclear exactly what that process is going to be. But
I feel like they're heading toward a get currency from any form of content to upgrade your legendaries, but still have to do the original Torghast to create them in the first place.
Yeah, so if it's capped at like you need the 5,150 for each of your legendaries to get to the rank 4 from patch 9.0, and then the rest of the way comes from other stuff, I think that would be pretty cool. My suspicion is that 5 and 6 are still going to require some new form of Torghast currency, like the Mega Soul Ash or whatever, that only starts dropping next patch. That's my suspicion on how it'll work, but we'll see.
I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
I don't think they will let us escape Torghast. I think that Torghast will be involved in crafting legendaries forever. But I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. And recently, actually, within since we started this podcast, basically, they data mined that there was going to be experience in Torghast in some way as well. Torghast XP display got data mined.
What does that even?
Oh, you can level in Torghast.
Maybe you can level in Torghast. Maybe that's what Torghast is turning into, which love that.
No.
Look, man, Torghast has been some of the worst endgame content IMO, but better than questing for leveling your 10th alt IMO.
It's honest to God better than Island Expeditions and Warfronts, though.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about Islands is that
you didn't have to do
yeah, after like the third week, you just didn't have to go back. But Torghast, you're kind of in Torghast jail for the whole expansion.
Yes. I guess we are in Torghast prison, although it is a little bit. I think the content is better, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is better than Islands in terms of the gameplay, for sure.
Warfronts are still. I will go down and say Warfronts is the worst content they've ever fucking made.
Yeah, Warfronts
I think so, actually.
Those are a swing and a miss for sure. That's the kind where I don't know anybody
so
who's
bad.
like about Warfronts. Yeah, it's like somebody from the PvE dev team saw what they did with Ashran and thought that everybody loved Ashran and was like, oh yeah, we need PvE Ashran. It's like, no, we don't, man.
So many people running Warfronts right now.
Ashran must be eliminated.
They did make PvE Ashran. That's the greatest analogy I've ever heard. Holy shit! Somebody in chat goes, "There's Warfronts and there are heroic Warfronts."
Oh yeah, dude, and then they made
the Warfront not queuable. That was so good.
So you had to get 20 friends or whatever
totally
to
forgot
go
about
do
that.
them.
I don't know if I did that a single time.
It was good items, dude. There was basically heroic raid items out of them.
Yeah, the first week you got like a heroic raid item.
Yeah, I remember that. It's good times.
PvE Ashran, you're right. You're so right.
We also have class changes and soulbind new stuff. So bunch of new soulbind abilities coming in here. A lot of really powerful looking ones as well. I do want to highlight the single most broken one that I've ever seen, which is Dreamweaver Waking Dreams. I don't know if you've seen this one yet.
That shit's so
excited.
When you take damage below 80% health, you gain a shield for 30% of the damage taken, lasting 3 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's got to be bugged. There's no internal cooldown on it right now.
There's no ICD on it. You literally, it just is a 30% DR effectively against most cases of incoming damage. It is so absurdly broken. It's
every tank in the world switches to Night Fate.
You would. I mean, this effect, it's going to get nerfed. The shield size is going to get nerfed to like 2%, and it will still be a great node. is the sick thing?
Well, I suspected that they're just going to put a 20-second ICD on it.
Yeah, I think 20-second is probably reasonable.
Okay, I mean, yeah, those have basically the same effect. But yeah, it is extremely good. There's a lot of good nodes, though, in the new Soulbind as well. A lot of cool stuff to be found here. Carver's Eye, for instance, for M+. Damaging an enemy above 90% health grants you 200 mastery for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. So you could get a thick 1,000 mastery on pull and M+. That's a lot of mastery.
Yeah, that's pretty big. That's really big.
Especially if you can tag something new to Extendo up to 10 seconds. That's some big value. The target cap potentially coming in big here. If you just stay on the opposite side of the pack as the 7th enemy, then you can walk near it and get your last stack.
Dude, stop.
All right, nobody damaged the 7th mob.
Everybody else can.
It's just you.
Mastery. you know. Oh, I guess they have to stay above 90% health, but it's only for 5 seconds. You can do it.
It's like the oh god, what is that trait?
That would probably actually be worth. You could just like CC one mob and then hit it later.
It's kind of like the Crane,
procking on the wrong target, and you're like, I'm so sad.
Yeah, a lot of really cool soulbind stuff in here as well. There's also balance changes, which Tettles has already written a manifesto about the balance ones.
It's not a manifesto. It was not that was not that big of a deal. Stop.
Moonkin changes are so dramatic.
Yeah, Stellar Drift has been turned into one of those talents that's worse than not taking a talent in that row.
That is wild. I don't
fucking
even get that.
Love that one for me. That was a very cool change. Mookin probably deserved nerfing at least somewhat. Like the boat change is like fine. What the fuck? They turn my talent into something that's not takeable. Like what the hell is that?
I saw a really good tweet on this. I think it was Atrocity, but someone linked like the damage rises and falls from a Moonkin on a boss, and they were like, the problem here is definitely not Convoke. It's Starfall.
Yeah.
Like the Moonkin does like 1,000,000 times more damage at the start of the pull than anywhere else, because it Convoke.
Yeah, which the balance fall things change will be nerfing that damage by quite a bit. But yeah, my suspicion here is this is a pretty big M+ nerf from the Stellar Drift change, and not a huge deal for Boomies and Raid, which were really, really, really good already, and still will be. And they're getting a new Covenant legendary as well.
We're sad about the changes to where you have to potentially play a new Covenant for Mythic Plus now. That's very cool.
Maybe, yeah. You do hate being a class that has a different M+ Covenant as your Raid Covenant. It is actually
welcome.
It's a really big pain, yeah.
So fucking dumb.
Or even just a different soulbind.
Yeah.
That's always nice too. Conduit energy.
My conduit energy. Oh, did you hear that people's characters were getting bricked from character copy?
If you'd swapped conduits on live and then you tried to copy your character to PTR, you had the same conduit energy and you just couldn't slot in the new slots on PTR. So people had bricks testing characters.
You cannot test.
Yeah. It is extremely, extremely cool. Top 10 conduit energy moment. There are some new conduit specific or covenant specific legendaries though as well. Not too many of them have been spoiled, but there's basically going to be one legendary for each class covenant combo, which includes for Balance Druid one that makes your covenant your convokes half as big, cast half as many spells, cast full moon more often, and have a 1 minute cooldown. So that could be
an awful legendary actually.
Dude, it could be good.
It can't because it doesn't give like actual throughput.
It gives you more moons, and it lines up your every convoke with CA, right? Automatically. Now you don't have to hold one or the other.
Okay. So that is the comparison to something that gives you 10% damage.
Well, they're nerfed the best legendary though. So
okay, something that was 18% damage that's now 10% damage.
Maybe. You never know.
There's no way.
Well, in the secret phase of the Sylvanas fight, there will be Sludgefish reincarnated. So on that specific phase, maybe this legendary.
This legendary would have been really good on Sludgefist, right?
Yes, it would have been actually very good on Sludgefist.
Actually, would it have been? Because you still got 2 channels of Convoke on Sludgefist before, and now you get 4 channels that are, as good as 2 plus some extra full moons. So
Naya Mastery and
oh, true, yeah, Naya Mastery, yeah.
It would have been better, but I don't know. They've also nerfed Imperial Ordnance. Thank fucking god.
Yeah, the Imperial Ordnance is now puts your other trinket on a 40-second coolie instead of a 20.
Oh, that's how they're handling double unuse, man.
Yeah,
double unuse is bad, so I'm okay with this.
So yeah, I mean, a lot is changing in 9.1. This hasn't been an exhaustive list, but
Mage and Afflock are both Fire Mage and Afflock are both getting pretty hefty nerfs as well. It seemed like there was like one for Aff that was like a huge Malefic Rapture nerf. And then the ones for Fire were, I mean, they're not nerfing the reason that Fire is broken, so I don't really know what to think about them. They're like damage nerfs.
Yeah.
And they're slightly nerfing Kindling, but with stat scaling, Combustion's still going to be a 1-minute CD. Combustion's still going to be a 1-minute CD. Fire is still fucking broken.
Yeah, Flame Strike still calls down a pillar of fire that burns all enemies, and all the other text is irrelevant.
yeah, exactly.
To me, this is just like a placeholder. Like, no, we're not gonna work on target cap yet. That's coming in the future. We're gonna make a weird change instead.
Unfix that.
Yeah, dude, it's actually so sad, this expansion. There's so much good stuff, and then there's just like, it's not even like things they've done a bad job of implementing their vision on. It's they've had just a couple of bad visions for things, and they're stubbornly sticking to them, and it's really holding back what could be such a good expansion.
Can you imagine Windwalker or like Outlaw Rogue without target capping?
I mean, the numbers would need to be a lot lower, but it's much worse. The way it is right now is much worse because like they do really good damage on 5 or whatever, but how good damage you do relative to the mage is not really based on how good you press your buttons on any given pull. It's based on, were there 10 targets in this pull or were there 5? And that is not a good feeling.
Yeah. So it's such a weird phenomenon that they've done this. I really, really hope they reconsider.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later, but I suspect this is
my suspicion is it's the next expansion at the earliest type thing.
I think so too.
Target capping's so bad. I hope they understand why.
If the Riot MMO devs are out there, you guys please no target cap.
Dreadus, we're gonna start casting for Riot MMO next, dude.
I mean, I'll certainly check out that game when it comes out. Yeah,
I'm down to check it out with you, bro.
2027 or whatever it launches.
Oh my god, it's like 2024 or something.
At some point, long in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. The next expansion year.
The next WoW killer. To join the 50 other ones that have existed before.
Wildstar.
Yeah, Wildstar may not have been a game to have killed WoW, but it did create a very powerful raiding guild. That do you remember when the Wildstar World First Guild transferred to WoW and was like,
God, what was the name of that guild? It was
I can't remember.
Invective.
I want to call it Imperative. Oh, okay, it was Invective. That's what it was.
Yeah.
The only person who I know from that guild who actually ended up being not like bad was Soranan.
Yeah. So there were certainly good players in it, but they like came in from Wildstar and were saying they were gonna get World First in WoW as well, and then they were like,
that was so good.
Yeah,
they got stuck on Mistress Sassy and we're just walled. I forgot about that. That was so good.
Oh no, I totally forgot. Yeah, that boss was a killer in that raid.
It was, yeah. That boss as well, they buffed it after a couple days too, so if you didn't kill it early, you had to kill a harder version. That was
Oh yeah, they buffed it by fixing the tank cheese, right? I think.
Yeah, you could have
AMS cheese.
AMS soak 3 lines or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, we're now telling stories from 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's way too long ago. Let's move on.
Let's get to Q&A, but first we get to thank our supporters over at patreon.com/Titanforge. They are Paul Can't Pick a Healer to Main, Sports Bra Hot Venthier Tank GF of Tichondrius US, What in Tarnation Riley, Delete DH wonders if Sigil of Chains is actually a jailer talent. It's actually quicken sigils, use that in every key, that's a damage increase. Purging the Wicked out of explosives is fun. Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, the Marshare, Regulus, Never Nude, Chewy, Dratnos, aka Dungeon Routes available to newbies on Shadowland. Subscribe to Dratnos' OnlyFans for actual Abyss routes. ZivXX, Seni, Hot Venthyr, Holy Pally GF, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Sinmora, Eevee, oh god, please buff Frosty K and PvE, Stevenson, love the Constantinople bit, take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD, No Trick, I scheduled a Tettle's Flame, Sire Dematicus, Sean, I've swapped Covenants 30 plus times, AMA, Gil, Dymat, follow guidelines, wear a mask, or die at home. Why is picking a main so hard? We are praying Annie will bump in 9-1. Nyx.
I love that.
How many times do you have to slap a boom chicken to cook it completely? Brusive. Dratnos Routes Abyss. No, Shadow Priest can't be S tier, haha. Shadow Word Death Go Burr. M Sanity. Canyon and Moonsonara of Emerald Dream Division 7 and Area 52 Scraw. Xena. Rogue is now good enough for Prague, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. Red Color. Some Zero of Tichondrius is out of SLG prison. Congratulations. YouTube.com/Workbringer. And Morty died 3 times to mechanics this week and to Harvey as Proudmore. Thanks all for the support. Keeping the name game as well very high level. Let's do questions and answers. Our first one comes from Frosty at Discord, who asks, how did you find your steady M plus group, and what did you do when someone needed to be replaced?
Do any of us have steady Mythic Plus groups right now?
I've been doing keys this week, but
not with that Frosty, with a different Frosty.
Yeah,
that's a different.
Yeah, actually,
Gene, I thought for a second there's a subtle flame.
Frosty.
Okay,
there's another Frosty.
Yeah, I've been doing keys with a tank called Frosty. It's been, I don't know. I mean, like, how did I find it? There's friends I'd done keys with last season. How did I find my first M plus group? Is Guildies. At the start of BFA, and they'd been.
That's how I did mine too.
MDI players. They needed a rogue, and I was playing rogue at the time. So that was how I got my first one, and then from there it's like networking. If you once you break into like the top end or whatever keys area, then you can start building up like a network of the other people up there, and then you sort of get into this nice spot of being on everybody's friends list and just getting whispers for keys sometimes. I think though that finding that, especially if you don't have like a lot of time to play as much and you're not like always available, it's a lot harder. And if you don't have a guild that has like M plus players in it, it's also a lot harder. Like I think having M plus players in your guild is really valuable for getting some connections. What do you do when
into their networks really easily because you're naturally around them more, and that's how I think probably all three of us probably got most of our connections to begin with.
What do you do when somebody needs to be replaced? It's really hard. Most people don't have a good answer for this. Most people are just mysteriously seen keying with somebody else, and that person just didn't get a whisper that there were keys that day. And they kind of get the message eventually. But yeah, I mean, it's never an easy conversation to have, right?
I mean, I think it depends on your relationship with the person. If you don't really know them that well, you can just fucking ghost them. I think that's the most common way of doing it is you just ghost them. You don't invite them to keys anymore, and they don't show up.
Yeah, you just form a new group or whatever that happens to be 4 of the same 5 people.
Yeah, and if you do value that relationship, and they would ask, or you're going to continue to have to raid with them or whatever, you can have a conversation with being like, hey, I think that this isn't going to work out due to composition. This isn't going to work out due to. Probably don't tell them if it's because of their damage or performance. I would lie personally. Just say,
if it's at all feasible, blame the times and the schedules. That's always the least offensive reason for somebody to get lobbed from something.
Comp is also like a pretty,
or comp. Yeah, comp's a good one. Just be like, oh yeah, man.
Comp is an inoffensive one. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not going to continue to play the same
comp shifts people's anger onto the meta, and that's how there's so much anger at the meta. Is everybody's been lobbed for comp or whatever, and it's not always like that's just one of the easy excuses that people give.
Please tell me I suck so I know to get better. I think, like, again though, it really depends on your relationship with the person. Like if you have to show up and raid with that person later on that week, you don't want to have the conversation of, hey, your damage is lower than what we expect. You're really not performing at a level that I'm comfortable with. You're going to grab somebody
like
else.
90% of people react really negatively to being told like
you were not good enough.
Yeah, and try, even though for like 10% of people they would really like to know and would use it to get better. It's just too risky to try and tell somebody that, because there is almost everybody reacts really negatively to it.
Well, I mean, it feels like shit regardless. Like,
yeah, it's
no
not
good
fun.
Way. It's not fun for anybody. Yeah, and like, I don't know. I'm sure that Dratnos has to do this, but like occasionally you have to have like performance reviews with like people that you raid with.
Yeah,
too, and
doing it in the raid is the worst job. The worst part of the like being in raid leadership.
No, because I'm friends with all these people too. Yeah, and I don't want to fucking have a negative review of like your performance this year. I don't have to talk to you about like, oh yeah, you messed up XYZ, and I'm not happy with you about it. But like, it definitely does suck. I mean, it depends, because like the question was worded in a way that they were like obviously ready to replace the person, not to the point where they're ready to work through the problems that they're having. Mm-hmm. And if you're ready to replace the person, that means that you've tried to work through the problems and it's just not happening.
Yeah, and a lot of guilds and M+ groups never deal with this because it's never more important for those groups to like progress than to play with their friends or whatever. And there's a lot of guilds out there that are doing that and fine, but at some point you have to decide whether that's you or not.
Exactly.
And what your priorities are.
There's just a million different situations, and having been the leader of a group for a long time in the past, I think, like I myself, I hate lying to people and I hate trying to ghost people like that. And I prefer to keep my friendships, and so I would be upfront with them. But yeah, most of the time they do take it very negatively, and a lot of times they get over it in a week and they come back and want to be friends and keep playing at some point in the future, which is great to see. That's usually the best outcome, I think. But I mean, you just got to read the situation and do your best, because a lot of people would take it negatively for the rest of their life, and you got to deal with that sometimes. It just sucks.
Next question comes from Panda RK on Discord, who asks, really enjoyed the deep dive on tanks the past few weeks. What makes a good healer, particularly M+, but maybe in raid? What do really good healers do that catch your eye and make you go, wow, what a gamer? Is it just a matter of meeting the healing check and pumping as much damn as possible? Yeah, I mean, this is a good question, because, what looks like a good healer to a non-healer, especially from, like, if you haven't actually played with them.
Doing non-healer stuff, not even just damage, but like doing the mechanics of the dungeon for the people, for the DPS or whatever, is the best way to catch my eye. If you do a job that I otherwise would have to do by myself, if you do it for me, I'm like, oh, thank fucking God, you're my king.
Yeah, that's big in raid. Like, yeah, I mean, just consistent high HPS. Like there's a healer in my guild that is just like always absurd amount of HPS for a Holy Paladin. And then like, yeah, mechanics, just, the healers are often the most likely players to die to whatever mechanics, especially early in progression, because there's health bars they're looking at and everything. And not dying to those things is really, I mean, you can go all the way up the guild ladder by just doing the most healing and never dying to mechanics. That if you can do that's Limit would like to know your location.
I've talked about this before. Oh, you go ahead.
I think in Mythic Plus healers, the most noticeable thing for me as a tank is how much they communicate, as well as playing at the top most level they can at the same time. So if you know what the healer's doing, especially the first time you play with them, if they're communicating when they're using certain cooldowns and coordinating with the DPS players to use their CDs after or before their own cooldowns, or with the tank with externals, then that's like a really, really strong sign that healer is experienced and can talk about that stuff while playing the game.
I think Prideful is a really good, brings this out as well in healers, like whether they're able to communicate
what they need DPS wise,
how we're getting through this Pride, like who can hold whatever cooldowns, who has to use certain cooldowns. I think is really, really good. There's also this kind of, I don't know, for me, there's this vein that runs through healers of like, oh, I can do it. I can heal this without whatever cooldown.
Let me heal this.
You don't have to use your cooldown. I can heal this. And I think that obviously like pushing your limits and like doing that to some extent is really, really good. But also the ability to say, I need this help here when you do need it is much better than wiping. So
alternatively, you could be an H-Pal and just assign others to heal things for you so you can do damage.
Yeah, you just make the Boomkin do the healing.
Fucking
so you can do the damage.
Nerf Holy Paladin.
I mean, I've talked about this before, but healing and tanking are both thankless jobs to the point where like the minimum expectation is to like the tank's minimum expectation is to not die to the mobs that he's tanking. The healer's minimum expectation is to be able to heal the group to the point where they're not going to die through their damage intake at all. And like that is like the expected outcome. So you're never going to get like praised or whatever just by keeping the group alive through healing. That's never going to happen.
It's nice when it happens. It happens in pugs. Sometimes in pugs, the people are just like great heals, and I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah, we didn't die.
But you know what I'm saying. I mean, the expected outcome for a healer and for a tank is like
it's pretty pass fail, right? It's binary, right? And it's either you don't notice it or you notice it and it's bad.
But you know, like if you have some DPS that's doing just fucking absurd numbers, it's like very noticeable. Even though their job is to do DPS, it's noticeable if they're doing like an exceptional amount of DPS. Whereas like if you're doing an exceptional amount of healing, or your tank is taking like overlapping his cooldowns perfectly and taking the least amount of damage ever, that's not really noticeable.
All right. I think that about does it for us this week. We will be back next week with maybe more 9.1 stuff. We plan to do that healer version of the tank episode that was talked about as well at some point soon as well. So stay tuned for those things. Actually, next weekend is MDI Global Finals. So
is it?
Yeah, Yes, it is. So
already.
Probably not an episode next weekend. Actually, we'll probably be back the one after. We might do a midweek one at some point. I'm actually not sure. We'll stay tuned to our Twitter and stuff. We'll let you know. But not an episode next at this time because we'll be busy with MDI Global Finals
MDI
next weekend. Yeah. So, good thing I remember that before ending the show, which I'm doing now. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.